for a long time I've gone back and forth on the idea where if you should or shouldn't tell people about the business that you're doing or the side hustle or whatever. And I've kind of always operated under just not really telling anyone, grinding in silence. And I do think it's kind of cool, especially because when you do end up telling people and you're pretty far along, they tend to be very surprised. But recently I've noticed some benefit to letting people know, because first of all, I'm somebody who likes to just kind of work alone, focus, because to be honest, I don't really trust anyone else to either give me the advice that is actually reasonable, give me any reasonable advice at all. And I also don't really, I don't know, I just don't trust people to follow through a ton. And maybe that's my own problem, and maybe I need to find better people or whatever. But for the most part, I just kind of, I kind of lone wolf everything just because I prefer to, if there's a mistake, have it just be on me, and not have to feel like, not like blame someone else, but like be, I guess, responsible for something. If someone else messes up, I don't really want to have to deal with that. But I think that's my own issue. But recently I've noticed that people are willing to help out, people are interested in hearing about it, and I think overall it really just makes you a more interesting person to people, which you could argue that that doesn't matter, but if you're trying to make, connections or just connect with people or anything, just build relationships with people, it's helpful to have things, and things to talk about. And, I've always also been the kind of person that would just ask people questions, and I would, never really try to talk about myself because that's what everyone told me to do. And so I would do that, but I noticed that I wasn't memorable to anyone really, because, they would probably get done with the talk, and one, probably kind of feel like shit about themselves because they were like, wow, I didn't ask him shit, I don't know anything about him. Or they just completely forget you exist because all they know is somebody asked me a bunch of questions today. They don't remember anything about you. So a component to it is actually being, it's just like being a human. A lot of these things are, these tricks we try to do to like get people to like us or whatever. And it's just like, a lot of it comes down to being human. And that's, what I'm doing here as well. Like, I'm not doing anything crazy, no crazy edits. I'm really not trying to get anybody to watch. And, to the people that have watched, it seems like it's resonated. And yeah, I just think it's an interesting concept that, the more we get into the kind of AI age and everything like that, the more just being a normal human is valued. And I think that's really cool. And, even like video styles like this, it seems like they're kind of coming back, but maybe it's just because I'm, in this space now. But I've never been this kind of person to put out things that I would consider to be lower effort. And I don't really think it's low effort. I just think it's, I try to give the necessary information rather than, put in a ton of effort on editing and being entertaining. It's kind of in a different way. But yeah, so I've noticed that, kind of talking about those things and letting people know the things you do, it not only makes you, more memorable and interesting as a person, but, people will also help you. Like, I don't know where I got this idea in my head that everyone's going to try and give you either bad advice or talk you out of it or whatever. But people really don't, they'll be like, oh, I have a buddy that does this, maybe he could do this, like a lot of people are genuinely willing to help. And I'm kind of, for context, when I'm talking about people in general, a lot of it is like coworkers and things like that I'm imagining in my head, at least when I'm talking about this, because like, it just seems weird at work to talk about the other stuff you do outside of work. But a lot of people usually think it's cool and they want to help. So, at least at my work. So, I found that to be interesting. I'm still, I kind of have done it in the past, and then I've stopped again because I'm kind of back in a lone wolf sort of, era. and I don't really know why, honestly. It's just I kind of like to grind in silence and be underrated, and then be able to show all the progress that I've made if somebody does ask. Um, and I don't know, I just never wanted to be that guy that told everyone they were gonna do something and no one really believed them. Especially because, you know, here and there I will start things and abandon them pretty quickly, just because, you know, by now I've done enough things to know if something's not a fit, I just get it out real quick. Like, I know you can succeed doing anything, but, you know, I think there's a feeling of when you know it's right, and this being one of them. And I'm kind of doing YouTube alongside my copywriting business that I started. And they don't necessarily go hand in hand, but they share the same vision, essentially, because, you know, I obviously know the impact of a personal brand, but I'm not really trying super hard to like build a huge audience or anything. It's more just, you know, if I have some kind of presence online, it just, I think, not only would make it easier to sell, but also I just genuinely like making these videos. So that's been kind of my approach so far. So in terms of, you know, tell people or don't tell people, it doesn't really matter. There's no shoulds. You know, obviously do whatever you want. Something that I tend to recommend to people that are starting out or they want to start a business or something like that, I usually say not to really tell people. And I've heard the opposite, so obviously this is just my opinion. But I think when you're starting out, sometimes not only does it create a lot of pressure that and really, and just not in a good way, not a good kind of pressure, but it also just, I don't know, I feel like at a certain point, if you keep telling people you're gonna do stuff and you don't, then they just don't really believe you, and you're just kind of a less I don't know about if it's like less trustworthy, but maybe like just less ambitious, like, oh, he's not an action taker or whatever. And, you know, maybe you don't care at all, or maybe you want the social contract like Naval says, so you feel like you have to do it. It just depends what's helpful for you. For me, I kind of like to start really without mentioning it to anyone, and then talk about it if I know it's going to be a thing for me moving forward, you know, if it's going to be like a thing I continue doing. But yeah, that's just kind of where I've been at recently. I kind of stopped talking about it. And I think the main reason has just been I don't really need other voices in my head telling me, because a lot of the time you'll just get unsolicited advice about stuff, and essentially if they're not where you want to be, there's really no point in taking that advice. And, you know, you can learn stuff from everyone, but it's different if somebody's not even in the realm of what you're doing and they're trying to give you advice. They have no idea. And I made the mistake of listening to those kinds of things for years, and it's just not worth it. Nobody knows. Just do what you think. And, you know, if you find somebody that is where you want to go, you know, even their advice, like, grain of salt. You know, everybody gets to certain destinations differently. You know, I always talk to people that are where I want to go, and they will all give me different answers, conflicting advice, all kinds of things. So I think the overall point is that if you're going to talk about it, do it for a better reason than either to impress people or to get advice or whatever. Like, just, you know, do it for you. So if you're really doing it for you, or maybe you do, you know, you want to find connections, you know, you need help, or you want to find a business, or you want to find a client, you know, you can talk to people and they probably know a business owner, and it's an easy introduction and things like that. I just think it gets hard if you're doing it for the wrong reasons. If you're telling people you're gonna start to make yourself feel better, it's just not a great play. And I've been there and I've done it, and yeah, not really worth it. But don't know if that's super useful or necessary info, but I just kind of wanted to share my piece, because that is something I always think about. And yeah, stay grinding either way.